we have got some new information regarding Bellatores, and I think this might be one a lot of you actually want to pay attention to, especially if you're a bit of a PvP Andy and you've been waiting for a game to maybe replace something like Lineage. Obviously it's a little bit early to tell. Let's just jump in and let me talk about it. Basically, the developers have done an interview with Invin, a massive Korean website, and in it they give new details. I'm not just going to sit here and read the article, I'm going to summarize it and play like footage of the game over this, okay? Now let's just quickly explain what Bellatores is for those of you unfamiliar. It's an MMO being made on Unreal Engine 5 and it's being made by NU. From what I can tell, there's an ex-NCSoft guy who's pretty much spearheading this and owns the company, I think. And they're basically making what we anticipate to be a mostly PvP MMO. However, the details on that suggest you might be able to play it if you don't like PvP. We'll get into the nitty-gritty in a moment. The game's going to have a Korean beta at the end of this month, and they actually do say in this interview that they're accepting invites from everywhere else, but it's only going to be in Korean. Now, whether or not you will get allowed into the game if you're not Korean, that we don't know right now. They actually said that they had more foreigners, basically non-Koreans, which I guess on a numerical scale you would probably anticipate. Shows that anticipation is at least pretty high. That beta is going to be from July 30th to the 3rd of August, and it's going to be 5 days. The game is apparently going to be a action combat, or at least a non-target combat game, with no official release date as of yet. Now, personally, I was a little bit confused by this game because a lot of the previous interviews have spoken about PvP, and then when you actually go on their Steam page, they don't really mention PvP at all, even though the tagline is Bellatores, the ultimate medieval war. And they basically lay out the settings. So they say that what's happened is that the king has died, a child prince is now in charge, and then there's these 5 great houses that are now all vying for power because, you know, they don't trust the child, I guess. You as a player will pick one of these 5 houses, and the game isn't really planning to have like traditional progression or like a traditional main story. There is a story, but it's all going to be how these houses interact with each other. That's kind of the core of the game. Now, for combat though, we have said that it's going to be non-target action combat, and it's going to have 12 grounded weapons, like basically historical weapons, although it does seem like there is like a fire staff, so I'm not really sure how grounded it is. I think it's just medieval fantasy basically. I don't think you're getting muskets or machine guns or anything crazy like that. From those 12 weapons though, you will be able to pick 2, and during combat you'll be able to switch between those 2. And you can think of this pretty much exactly like New World. It sounds like you're going to level up each weapon, you'll be able to reset your talents in that weapon if you've gone like in the wrong direction, you just want to try a different build, but you'll have to weapon up each weapon individually, and you pick 2 weapons. So I mean, it really does sound like New World in that sense. They're also going to have 2 abilities that are basically shared skills. These I think will come from like spell books that are in the open world, not tied to any weapon, you just have them. Now they do talk about the freedom of choice in the game, but I'm a little bit confused here because on one translation I read, it sort of sounded like that they're still working on the gathering and crafting, but it seems like the gathering and crafting is how they actually want you to get your gear. You're not going to get traditional loot drops from enemies. It's not like you go and kill a boss and the boss is going to give you a massive armor piece that very much improves your character. I suspect they might give you some materials that will let you craft an armor piece that will let you improve your character, but not directly, I think. Because they do say that they want the player though to have the freedom to pick and choose. Do you want to do the PvP? Do you want to do gathering and crafting? Do you want to do that kind of stuff and, you know, have your choice? And as I said, the gearing is apparently going to come from that system. Now, if you're a New World enjoyer from when it launched and you enjoyed the gamble crafting, it does sound like that Bellatores is going to be bringing that. It sounds like they've got 4 tiers. I think they called them normal, advanced, rare, and heroic. But that to me just sounds like grey, greens, blues, purples. Maybe no legendaries at this point. The higher up you are in your crafting though, the better chance you'll get a higher, superior quality item. Worth noting that they are still planning the system where you cannot be fully leveled up in every single gathering and crafting profession. I think they said you have to pick 2 that you can maximize. I don't think that applies to weapons, by the way. I think that's just gathering and crafting. And then on the economy side of things, it's going to be player driven, and they are anticipating to have an auction house, but currently no direct trading, basically to stop bots and RMT and that kind of thing. Now, the actual core gameplay is centered around these houses and these factions basically, and the game is basically going to be a realm versus realm PvP game primarily. Now, let's be clear here. They actually said that there's going to be different zones that are going to be like neutral, contested, all out war basically. They also mentioned that at some point they're going to have a system that's going to stop indiscriminate player killing, effectively like a criminal system, I think is what they were hinting at there. However, that is not in the closed beta test. The closed beta test sounds like it's going to be pure PvP. Now, I don't think you'll be able to PvP your own house or your own faction, so I think it's effectively faction v faction PvP. They actually mentioned in this test that you're going to be able to go and attack the other faction's main city. They mentioned Stormwind and Orgrimmar there, which I thought was kind of cool. They do say though that you can't be killed in the city or in towns and stuff like that, so I'm assuming you'll get flagged up if you attack back, but you won't be able to be killed otherwise. They do say that the game is going to have these like occupation wars and these territory wars. They also mentioned this like 10v10 dueling system. But what's important is that they actually said there's no way of like funneling goods and rewards to specific people. So I think this is going to be a faction-based PvP game where your faction will get the reward. Obviously, it's a little bit hard to tell right now. Now, even though the game is going to be PvP, and especially this closed beta test, because, you know, it sounds like the factions will just be able to freely PvP against each other, the game does have some PvE. It is going to have dungeons and it is going to have raids. And I think they actually mentioned the Holy Trinity, like they're saying you'll need a tank, you'll need a DPS, you'll need a healer to just do the basic dungeon. So it's got that gameplay as well. For the actual test itself, the first 3 days will just be normal testing, like early levels and that kind of jazz. From days 4 to 5, I think they're going to allow you to effectively boost yourself in some way so that players will be able to quickly hit the level cap. Not really sure on what that progression system is going to look like, how long it will take. So that's something we'll have to see when we get into the game, if we get in, that is, of course. As for the performance, they suggested that the game is running well already. They're going to have DLSS and FSR4. They say with a 4070 plus DLSS, you'll be able to get upwards of 150 frames per second. And I think FSS4 is actually coming after the beta. The beta itself is going to have FS3. My apologies there. They do go on to talk about monetization. They say they're not going to have skins that don't fit in the game. They're all going to be like medieval themed. There's not going to be like Santa or anything like that. Some mounts might be a little bit like fantastical, but everything should in theory fit into the medieval fantasy vibe. The cosmetics basically will be grounded in the era and of the time. Now, I know what a lot of you are going to be thinking. Korean PvP MMO? You've heard this before. They actually mention Arcade in the article. You're all thinking pay to win. I'm thinking pay to win. And yet they say no pay to win. They say gear progression will be fully time-based investment. Now, that's a story that we've heard time and time again recently. I do kind of feel like a lot of the Korean games are changing their view on pay to win. They're perhaps mostly trying to target a more global audience, and they just think, hey, well, one way of doing that is to ditch pay to win. And I think that's a good strategy, but it's probably worth noting that what we call pay to win probably isn't what they call pay to win. For example, Chrono Odyssey's like, no pay to win, and then in another interview is like, well, actually we're going to do convenience. And convenience in my eyes effectively is pay to win. It's just not as bad as some of the other types of pay to win. Anyway, they're saying no pay to win. It's great to hear. The proof, as everyone, that one will be in the pudding. I know a lot of you aren't going to believe it. You've been bitten too many times. You're very, very shy on that issue, and that is completely 100% reasonable. The closed beta test isn't really going to tell us one way or another, I think. Another question that a lot of you are going to be asking is it mobile? The answer is no. Categorically, this is not a mobile game. This is a PC first, PC dedicated MMO. They do say that a separate mobile client might happen in the future, but they're not planning that right now. They're not talking about that right now. This is PC focused. It's basically a PC dedicated, sandbox centric, medieval, realm versus realm, player driven economy with action combat MMO. Hopefully with no pay to win. I mean, I guess that's the elevator pitch. And you know what? It kind of sounds good. They do say that the closed beta test is not going to be a marketing test, so expect some jank. Always nice to set expectations, I guess, after what happened to Chrono Odyssey. And we'll see what happens, right? My view is that PvP games are not really going to be overly successful in this day and age. They say that there's a lot of PvPers, so we'll see. I mean, Throne of Liberty had a lot of players, but Throne of Liberty was very much opt-in PvP, like you didn't have to do it. I think in this one, at least in the beta, you're not going to be able to opt out of it, which is going to kill it for a lot of people. But when the actual game launches, there's going to be like peace areas, neutral areas, war areas. They say they're going to have anti-grief mechanics and stuff like that. Like, we'll just have to wait and see. I've always said that I'm kind of okay with a PvP game if it's faction based. Like, if we're going to be in a faction that has an area and then the other factions have their areas and then occasionally we'll make like excursions into the middle to all have a little bit of a fight. Yeah, I think I could see myself playing something like that. If, however, I can just log into the game and just be chilling, gathering some trees in the middle of our territory, and, you know, I get ganked by 50 people, and there's no like anti-stopping that mechanic, then yeah, I might get a little bit fatigued with that. But, you know, I'm happy to wait and see what they present. Obviously, the closed beta is going to be a little bit more PvP than the release, we think. But all in all, I think if you're a PvP Korean MMO enjoyer, definitely pay attention to this one. If you're looking for PC first, possibly no pay to win, well, yeah, I think PC probably is fine. No pay to win, it's what they say, but as ever, we'll see it when we see it. I think it's just one to pay attention to, and I think by the end of this month, we're going to have a lot of information regarding this game. Whether or not it's one to pay attention to, whether it's not. For now, I'm tentatively excited, I guess. I don't want to get too excited. It's a Korean PvP MMO after all. But yeah, I mean, I could be interested. Let's see if we get in. Let's see if we can play it. For now, let me know your thoughts. If the game's any good, I'm going to have a guild, so join the Discord. Come watch me on Twitch. Do that. Have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.